Hi, I'm Lily and welcome back to my knitting podcast. I'm Lily Kate Makes on Instagram, and this is where I talk about my projects, my designs, any new yarn, just all things knitting basically. So thanks for joining me. Today I have a few finished objects to show, one that I'm like absolutely buzzing with how it's turned out, a second version of another item that I've made, some crochet, some new yarn, few new things to chat about. So I'm hoping the light's going to stay reasonably consistent. We've finally got a sunny day for the first time in forever, she says, as it goes dull. So yeah, hopefully we won't be too all over the place with the lighting. Anyway, I'll just start off by talking about what I'm wearing. I feel like I'm gesticulating a lot today. Anyway, so this is my Feels Right tee, which is actually one of last year's patterns, but I think it's probably one of my most worn items actually. I put this pattern out, I can't remember if it was May or June last year, I think May. So it's just a nice, really relaxed knitted t-shirt with set-in sleeves, worked in fingering 4-ply weight yarn. So I'll just stand up so you can see a little better. A kind of retro ringer tee type vibe. I just wear all the time, and as soon as I saw the blue skies this morning, I was out on my run in the sun, feeling very springy, and this just feels like my perfect spring top. Even though it's probably still a bit cold for a t-shirt, but hey ho. So yeah, this one I made in a white cotton from Rico last year, and then used a hand-dyed yarn. One of the yarns that I have in my stash, mine and my mum's joint stash, whatever, that's the really wacky variegated ones that we bought years ago, probably with the intention to use them for socks, or possibly shawls. But given that neither of us particularly knit socks or shawls anymore, we have a lot of these yarns that need a new use. And that's kind of where this design idea came from, especially for scraps of yarn, because this took like less than half a skein. I can't remember the yardage off the top of my head. But it was just a nice way to use the pooling and the really wacky variegated yarn, but putting it in a one big stripe felt like it sort of toned it down a bit. I wouldn't wear a t-shirt in all over pink and yellow, green even, but I wear it like this. So yeah, it's one of my favourites. I keep thinking, oh, I might do another version of that. I might make an all over stripe version, or I don't know, I've thought of a navy and white version maybe, or just another similar neutral with a colour patch here. In fact, one of my test knitters did it the other way around actually. She did the main body in the variegated yarn and then a white stripe, and that looks so good too. But anyway, maybe I'll get around to knitting a second version. I always say I'm going to make another one, and then a new design's dangled in front of me and I think, oh yeah, I'm just going to cast on something new instead. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'm wearing today because the sun is shining. So this is the Feels Right tee, and I'll link all that down below. So my finished object that I'm so excited to share, drag Dolly over here. I never know when I show, let's scoot this way a little bit, if we're going to both stay in focus, or hopefully if I stay on the same plane we'll be okay. So this is my poisoned apple top, named for fairly obvious reasons. I don't think I need to explain that one. And this was, I had cast this on last time, in my last video, which was about 3 weeks ago now, but it didn't take me that long to make. I made another complete project in that time, which was part of an Instagram collab. So yeah, I just kind of, I had an idea in my head for a video that I wanted to film for Instagram with this new top, and that kind of meant that I had to knit the whole thing in 3 days straight. Self-imposed deadline there, but meant this one got put on the back burner for a bit, so it's actually been a quicker project than YouTube may suggest. So yeah, poisoned apple top. This is Shibui yarn, which, as I mentioned last time, they very kindly sent me their full range of spring summer yarns to try out. That was late last year, and these were the two that I selected. The Haven, which is 80% merino, 20% cashmere, so this is like very luxurious, super soft top. It's very nice. And the Silk Cloud, which is 60% mohair and 40% silk, so it's quite high silk content compared to others, compared to similar yarns, I mean, but still there's plenty mohair there. So yeah, they kind of jumped out at me to be used together because I loved how when knit to a really loose gauge, like this is on a 4mm needle, which is a bit bigger than I would tend to use for a silk mohair yarn. So it's really nice and sheer, and I just kind of combined all my favourite things in this top. I always love a neat fitted nipped in sort of snug around the shoulder top. That's just one of my favourite things. And I love a sheer fabric, which so far I have combined those in my Avenham cardigan, where I had a fitted cardigan with big billowy mohair sleeves, but I've not combined it this way. So yeah, we use the mohair there. I say we, this is only me here. Are you gonna spin? Oh, she's squeaky. I used little puff sleeves here, not as much of a puff as I've used in the past because I figured if they're short sleeves you don't need too much volume. I didn't want it to look like a costume, given the kind of Snow White feel about it. I thought it could veer into costume territory if I wasn't careful, and I didn't want that. So it's not a crazy amount of poofage in my spreadsheet for doing the grading for these puff sleeve tops. I always have like the poofage, poof stitches, and before poof and after poof as like technical terms, which all makes sense to me. Yeah, so my usual top down set in sleeve method of working the upper back. Why are my hairs all over this? No one else find hair in their knitting constantly. Yeah, top down, set in sleeve, worked on the back, then the front, then the body, and then you pick up the sleeves afterwards. So I did these with pleats, which are another of my favourite techniques. These are quite a bit bigger pleats than I've done in the past couple. If I sort of fold it properly together, you can see if it wasn't opened out. Don't know how well you'll be able to see there, but it's a reasonably large pleat, but when you just have the one single pleat there, it allows it to sort of billow out and gather in nicely into the cuff. So that was very satisfying to do. I think pleats are one of my favourite techniques simply because it's one row but it has a big impact. That's the kind of thing that I like, where you can just do acres, well not acres, you know what I mean, a lot of stocking stitch and then one row, one particular way of decreasing or pleating or whatever it may be that like transforms the fabric. I think that's quite a satisfying way to knit rather than something that requires attention on every row. Spinning round further, we have a keyhole neck. Kind of for necessity because I wanted the front neck to be really high. I sort of started from, it's a different gauge to this top, but I kind of had this neckline in mind. And I knew that this is a reasonably relaxed looking t-shirt neck. I wanted it to be a bit more like, a little bit more formal, kind of more up in your neck. Which I figured, if you're wearing a high neck, what's one more inch kind of thing. Yeah, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like fabric up here, then you're not even going to go near this. So if I'm doing it, may as well do it properly, was my thought process there. But with the high neck meant that I needed to have an opening at the back or it wouldn't go over the head. This is actually the first time I've done a keyhole neckline, which is surprising because I love how they look. It's taken me however long now to actually get round to it, but it's not shaped this, it's just like a slit that opens slightly with rib edges to make it lie neatly, and a button loop that I will need to film a tutorial of how to make those, although it's not particularly complicated. It's sort of make a loop and then blanket stitch around it, but you know. And one button there from my Nana's button tin, which I must have sorted through so many times. It's my great Nana's button tin. That's my Nana on my mum's side, but I think I've probably got some buttons in there that I inherited from my grandma on my dad's side as well. It kind of all makes its way to me. So I have tons of buttons, but often finding a set of matching ones for a cardigan or something has proven tricky. So I've not used them as much as I would like to, but for this, since I only needed one, I thought I am not ordering one button online. That's just ridiculous. Thought if nothing else I must have some spare, that, you know, when you buy a coat and it comes with a spare button. But luckily I found the perfect little navy button in my Nana's button tin. So there we have it. I'm a bit skew-muffy there. The fit of the body is It's very fitted but no negative ease. I didn't want it to be like super clingy, just a little bit more tight, a little bit tighter than this one. You see this has got a little bit of ease and that's why it has that relaxed fit. I wanted this to be a bit smarter, so you know, for all those smart occasions I've got to go to. So yeah, no ease there, just fitted through the body, and I haven't graded it yet, haven't even written it up properly yet, but I will be adding bust darts I think, because if you don't then it'll compromise the fit if you had a much bigger bust. And what else was it? Oh yeah, the sheer panel, you'll just be able to knit that to wherever you wish. Like I made it so that it just comes up to strapless bra level. I wanted it to be as like sheer as much as possible, but you could raise that so that it wasn't quite as sheer down low if you wish to. So that's enough about that one today. I shall push Dolly out of the way because I don't know if the camera will stay focused on me if I don't. What else have I made? Another project that I shared last time that started off as my mum's project, then became mine and is now finished, is my version 2 of the One That I Want crop top, which will be available this Saturday. I think I'm going to make a whole video because I've got 2 patterns coming out on Saturday. I'm going to run a discount for them both together, and I'm going to run a knit along, so save that for another video. But anyway, made a black version. First black thing I've ever made because it is a bit of a nightmare to work with, but I felt like I needed the sandy grease kind of outfit there, and it's actually really wearable. So I shot some updated model Polaroids in it because, you know, we need the black tank top uniform with scalloped edges this time, because who needs a plain top? It was a challenge in terms of, I think the most challenging part was probably sewing black buttons onto black yarn with black thread. Like this was one that once the sun had gone down, it's kind of like, right, put that away, that's tomorrow's project. I'm not even going to attempt that in the dark. But I love how it turned out with you kind of have to show it again to see the scallops properly. I don't know how well they're showing up, but it's just a really simple crochet edging there. This pattern is coming out soon, in 3 days, whatever. Where are we up to? Yeah, Wednesday. 3 days, and it's been a process, the test knitting stage, because obviously this is something so fitted, and then when you're trying to make something perfectly fitted to all different body shapes, body types, it was bound to not be absolutely perfect first time, but I have got it sorted now. We've had a few updates to the pattern and the test knitters look so good in it. But yeah, I'll share that in my next video anyway. Enough waffling about that. Next thing I have to show you is some yarn, because, you know, I don't have enough of that. Yeah, I have plenty. So this is from Knit Crate. I'll show you the package. There you go, we can see them. Who contacted me and asked if I wanted to try out their yarn subscription service, which is not something I've ever done before. I've only ever purchased yarn, you know, myself. I've never had never done like an advent calendar or a subscription or anything where I don't know exactly what I'm getting. So I thought, you know what, let's live life on the edge. As exciting as life gets these days, surprise yarn where you don't know what you're getting. So yeah, I was very happy to try it out, their subscription service. Obviously didn't know what I was going to get. They have various different options, like there's a sock one, there's a Malabrigo one, there are, and you can choose the different sort of colour ranges. I can't remember exactly what the one I chose was called. This was back in January, February, and it's taken a little while to make it to me. I'm not sure exactly when it was shipped, but obviously this is a US service, so in the UK it did take quite a while to arrive, but that's fine. Yeah, so I chose the earth tones, I think it was called. There was sort of a neutrals, a really brights, and an earthy kind of colours in between that I thought would be most for me. So the first yarn that arrived, Audine, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it, Audine Wools by Knit Crate, which I believe is their February yarn. So obviously we're now in late March, but it makes absolutely no difference when it arrives. So each time you get a couple of skeins, and there are patterns included through the QR code for a crochet pattern and a knitting pattern that can be made in the yarn. So I just thought it'd be a fun way to try it out, a few different brands, maybe brands that aren't available in the UK that I thought I would give a whirl. And they're very kindly offering 20% off the first order to anyone who orders using the code LilyKateMakes, which is in all capitals, but I'll put all the description and what have you down below. So now, what am I going to do with it? The patterns that arrived are, well, it's through a QR code. I chose the eco-friendly, which is why I have this package rather than a nice box. Figured that was better. So you can download the patterns, but both patterns are for accessories, which I knew would be the case, because obviously you can't give a garment pattern with only 2 skeins of yarn that would work across the sizes. However, I still want to make a garment with it, because I find accessories, apart from winter accessories like hats, that obviously during winter, anytime I go out, I will wear a hat. And scarves and cowls to a certain extent, although I think you only, like, I'm quite picky about what I like with those, and I actually really like wearing fabric scarves, so don't hate me knitters, but I'll wear a knitted hat, a knitted jumper, and then a fabric scarf. It's just a style that I like. And as for other accessories, I know that shawls are like the big thing in the knitting world, and I know that as a designer, in theory, it makes sense to do things that you don't have to grade, because the time invested in creating the pattern is so much less. But they just don't inspire me the same, and I find, like, I love looking at them, but I wouldn't know particularly how to wear them. I know you can just sort of wrap a shawl around as like a scarf, and that's how most people wear them, but one thing that I always think when it comes to choosing what to make is, would I buy this if I saw this in a store? In any clothing store of any price range, whatever. Forget about ethics of fast fashion, whatever. Just thinking of what the item looks like, would I buy it? And if the answer is a no, then there's no point in me making it. You know, this top here, if I saw that in John Lewis, let's just pick a random UK store for example, I would probably buy it because I really like it. This t-shirt, I would really like it. I find I want to be able to detach the enjoyment of making it from the actual finished item, and unless it ticks both boxes, I don't bother. I just think, I know some people just love the process of knitting, and you know, my family members, my nan, whatever, would be the same, that she just likes doing the crochet. She's not particularly fussed about having the finished item, but I don't know, I want to be able to wear them. And when it comes to shawls, or often, well, wraps are kind of different, but shawls specifically, I wouldn't pick them in a store. I wouldn't particularly choose to wear them, or I wouldn't like pick that outfit from Pinterest if it was just based on the item itself. Even if you sort of don't think about the knitting techniques involved, and oh, there's such a pretty yarn and look at these details here, detach from all that and think, would I wear it? Probably not. Just being honest at this point in my life. I have done shawls in the past when I was more just focused on the knittery details, but at the age I am at now, maybe it will change in the future. I'm currently 23 and I don't particularly feel drawn to shawls. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that I will be making this into a garment. Yes, it will have to be a small garment, but based on the yardage, I worked this out last night, can't remember it off the top of my head. 231 yards to 100 grams of DK weight yarn should be able to do a little tank top, like a little vest for layering, and the fibre content is 80% wool, 10% silk and 10% mohair. So we're thinking an autumn yarn there, so it's probably not going to be cast on anytime soon. I might leave that for later in the year. But yeah, a little, maybe a V-neck, maybe a square neck, I don't know. Haven't really thought beyond that, but by process of elimination, it will be able to be a little top that I will make later this year. Because, I don't know, I've kind of tried to fall back in love with accessories, and I made one last year at the start of lockdown that was that did actually get worn quite a bit. It was a really fun knit with scrap yarn, my brighter wrap. I'll go get it. So this is the one accessory pattern that I made last year. It was all scrap yarn, so there are cottons, wools, bamboo, some silky sock yarn, there's a bit of everything in here, all scraps that I used. If you kind of, so the main body is diagonal bias stripes, one end in the white and the bluey tones with the orange accent, and one end in the white and the orangey pink tones with the blue accent, which I spent forever choosing, faffing about with the different colours, deciding what to do. And it has an inbuilt, created as you go fringe on both ends, which is possibly my favourite element, and if you see here, the short rows are worked in this sort of knitted on fashion. I can't really think how to describe it, but you can see the rows change direction, and this centrepiece uses the white and the accent colour of each end in sort of random, it's all random stripes to attach them together. It's slightly ridiculously long, so you wouldn't need to make it that long. But yeah, I made this as a start of the first lockdown project, and I actually really enjoyed it, and I found that it's been sort of my one well-worn wrap kind of item, but I like its simplicity. So, you know, if I wanted to do them again, I kind of don't want to go too wild with shawls and wraps and stuff, so I just don't feel like there's as much scope. I've kind of done one that I really liked, the scrappy one, and I'm not feeling particularly compelled to do any more. I'm a little bit warm sitting in that now in the sun. Whew, we don't need two knits on today. What was I saying? I feel like I am a complete sieve head at the moment, like I'll be saying something and then it just disappears. Can't remember what else I was going to say about that. But yeah, that's my one accessory. I just liked that with the garment you have so many different components. Obviously sleeves are my favourite thing. Just the different types of fit, different necklines, different sleeves, different finishings, different cuffs, different buttons, different edging. Like there's so many more different elements to play with. And I just don't find that you have as much scope with a shawl, so that's where I stand on the design front. But I know it works differently for everyone, but yeah. Let me know what your thoughts are there actually. Are you a garments only kind of knitter that likes to wear your tops every day, or do you like to have fun with accessories? Let me know what your thoughts are. At the moment I don't actually have any knitting projects on the go, which is pretty much unheard of for me because I tend to like bounce from one straight into the next. But after I finished this, and I've had a few different yarns arrive from different brands that have sent me things to play with, so I've done a bit of swatching, and since I have two new patterns coming out, I had a uni deadline this week, just various things going on that I thought, you know what, let's not rush into just casting on the next thing. This is literally hot off the needles, kind of like that cool before I start the next one, given that I've not even written that up yet either. So I thought it wouldn't do any harm to not rush to cast on my next project, just give it a week or two while I sort of tidy up loose ends, literal and metaphorical. So the one project that's been in the background, my mum has been nagging me to finish for ages, is a crochet blanket that she taught herself to crochet at the beginning of lockdown 1.0 a whole year ago. And she taught herself and then practiced by making all these squares. I can't remember how many there are, about 60 I think, just using like the mini balls of cotton. So she's now very good at crochet, but did not fancy the joining the squares together task, because the fiddly tasks normally just sort of get pushed to me, which is fine, but I did kind of keep putting it off. Like these squares have been joined together at a rate of like a couple of squares every 2 months. Like I've really not been spending much time on it, because it's one of those things that I do a bit of and then think, oh, cast on a new project, and it gets sidelined. So I figured, while I just let other ideas kind of stew in the back of my mind, I should get on with the bloody blanket. So where even am I now? Using the continuous join as you go think that's what it's called, method. Just basically attaching them all together with a white, bright white, and they're all in random formation, arrangement even, not formation. I'll show you more when it's finished. I don't have a clue where it's going to be used. It's a little more leery than most of the things in our house, so don't know where it's going to be, but it was a practice crochet project that, even though this edging is probably going to be 40% of the whole thing, it was my mum's project, and I've got the finishing, which is really, it's more than just finishing, isn't it? But yeah, thought that can be, I'll get that done before rushing into anything else. I have a few more squares to attach. And then I don't know what's going to be next. I'm thinking, should I do like a cottony summer top? Because one thing I've realised I don't have in my collection of patterns is a summer top that isn't high neck. And I know that, you know, I like to wear a low neck when it's sunny and I want to kind of get a tan outside, and a lot of people don't necessarily like the high neck, so that's probably quite a gap in my knitting wardrobe that I should fill. So there are a few different options that I might do there. Oh, I'm just wafting this around actually. The square crochet hook that I was sent to try. Quite liking it. It's very stabby on the end, which is good for getting in the awkward places. Yeah, summer top. I've also got some really fluffy, light, super chunky yarn that kind of, I think, would make a really nice beachy, billowy, wafty, gosh, what am I doing now? Just like a really big, oversized, simple, super loose top. That's another idea. Got a few ideas kind of whizzing around, but I thought, let's not rush. So I think that's all I have to talk about today. I'm probably just waffling now, so thank you so much for watching again, and let me know your thoughts on what I should do with the knit crate yarn down below. Thank you, speak soon.